Welcome back to METIS IAS. In part 1, we discussed about economy and agriculture, infrastructure and industry. But today, we are going to discuss about the second half of the GS paper 3 structural autopsy. That is environment, disaster management, science and technology and security. That is internal security. Most students think these areas have become difficult because current affairs have increased. That is not what happened here. The syllabus remained completely identical. The evaluator evolved. Today we are going to prove that by using actual past year questions from 2013 to 2025. We are going to not predict questions, but to understand exactly what UPSC rewarded and what UPSC gradually stopped rewarding, and how your preparation strategy for mains 2026 must change. We are going to discuss all these details in this class. So we are going to classify those environment, disaster management, security, science and technology topics into engines. The first engine is environment. When we observe the 2013 to 2025 previous year questions, we analysis like that. That is from awareness to framework and framework to vulnerability. The structural shift of the making of questions or framing the questions have been changed from awareness to framework and framework to vulnerability. So for this, we are going to look at the actual paper once. In the early years, the focus was basic environmental literacy. UPSC asked about national water policy, river pollution control, and hazardous waste management, etc. etc. These type of questions they have been asked in the earlier years from 2013 to 2017. This is the era number 1. The question demanded was straightforward on those times, like explain, list, discuss, etc. Like they asked questions regarding national water policy, explain the policy or list the features, river pollution control, discuss, and hazardous waste management, explain, list, discuss. That type of questions they are asked in those area in those times. That is arena. That is era number 1. That is that 2013 to 17 times. Then after 2017, then move forward to the middle years. This is called as middle years. In those times, the paper was transitioned. You are asked to contrast like the questions, that is the EIA 2006 framework against the draft EIA 2020 notifications. Here what is meant by EIA? Environment impact assessment. They asked about the questions like 2006 environment impact assessment note assessment notification to contrast the draft 2020 environment impact assessment questions. So you are asked to evaluate the revised World Health Organization air quality guidelines. They're asked like these type of questions into the framework model. In this, you have to notice something, that is environment stopped being purely descriptive. It became highly institutional. So because they asked about EIA, then WHO air quality guidelines, etc., etc. Because they asked about institutional capacity. But now look at the most recent 2005 paper. Look at the terms they asked. Seawater intrusion in coastal aquifers, groundwater depletion factors, updated nationally determined contributions, climate commitments. You have to understand the era. This is the third era of the preparation of making up the UPSC CSE GS-3 questions as far as environment is concerned. When you look at the carefully, the examiner, you have, you can observe like these things. The examiner is no longer asking, do you know environmental issues? No, that type of questions they are not going to ask. They are not interested in that. The examiner is asking, do you understand environmental mechanisms and institutional responses? That is the shift from broad concept to framework. And finally, to micro vulnerability. The questions UPSC is asking to, do you understand environmental mechanism? They're asked like this. They asked problem, mechanism, institutional gap, intervention, and trade-off like these things. So the shift from broad concept to framework and finally to micro vulnerability. In the earlier years, they asked broad concept type of questions. Then in the middle years, they asked framework type of questions. And then finally, they go into the very deeper, like micro vulnerability topics. Like for that matter, simply seawater intrusion in coastal aquifer. This is the micro vulnerability. They're asking very micro vulnerability. In the previous year, in the previous 2013 era number one, they asked national water policy, etc., etc. So that is the broad concept. This is the micro vulnerability. So you have to understand the way of direction, the shift from broad concept to framework to micro vulnerability. This is the way UPSC shift the asking of questions. So after these observations from 2013 to 2025, we are going to understand and changing the preparation for 2026. In what way we have to prepare for 2026 mains examination as far as environment is concerned? What is the preparation implications for 2026? For 2026 mains, we have to focus on what and focus. So stop making soft descriptive notes on pollution, water, or climate. Instead of that, your structural thought process must shift away from the low scoring model. That is the note making shift for environment. In the low scoring and old answer type of questions, that is climate change, causes, effects, and generic schemes. These are the old way, old answer, traditional low scoring pattern. But the shift has changed from climate change, cause, effects, generic schemes to what is the problem, what is the mechanism, then what is the institutional gap, how we intervene, that is intervention, then trade off, and way forward. This type of answer scoring, high scoring structure is need of the hour. Let's take one example. Take groundwater depletion as a live example. Comes to the old approach, list basic reasons and names standard schemes. That's it. The question completed. The question is what here, groundwater depletion. This is the question. In the old way, how can approach basic reasons we list out and then names of standard schemes, then uncompleted. But the high scoring METIS framework addresses the core mechanism. What is the core mechanism? Here, over extraction lowers freshwater pressure and allows saline intrusion into coastal aquifers, causing a severe drop in the freshwater hydraulic head, which allows marine water to intrude into coastal aquifers. So, you identify the institutional gap in local aquifer governance, then provide an engineering intervention like managed aquifer recharge pilot projects and evaluate the trade-offs. That is how you change your marks. In the old approach, we taken groundwater depletion. In the old approach, what uh, what we have done in the years, that is basic reasons list out and names and standard scheme. That's gone. But now what should we have to do is over extraction of lower freshwater pressure. This is comes to the marine aquifers, that is sea intrusion. That is we discussed seawater intrusion in coastal aquifers. This is the high scoring approach for that question. What is the METIS framework here? We have to address the core mechanism. First problem, what is the problem here? Over extraction lowers freshwater pressure. This is the problem and allows saline intrusion into coastal aquifers. This is the problem mechanism, causing a severe drop to freshwater hydraulic head, which allows marine water to intrude into coastal aquifers. Problem mechanism completed. Then you identify the institutional gap in local aquifer governance. This is the institutional gap. Then provide an engineering intervention. What we discuss intervention like managed aquifer recharge pilot projects and then evaluate the trade-offs. This is how you change your marks with this updated structure, answer structure, like problem, then mechanism, then institutional gap, then way forward or engineering interventions, then trade-offs. This is the structure. This is the structure of writing decent answer for 2026 examination, high scoring answer rather than old approach. Because knowledge into knowledge converts into marks is need of the hour as far as mains examination is concerned. Because not only knowledge, the ultimate presentation in the examination like converts marks into knowledge, converts into marks. So you have to structure the answer very much carefully and demand of the question, then only you change your marks, increase your marks. Then comes to the engine number 2, that is disaster management. After observing the 2013 to 2025 papers, we observation we understand simple thing, basic thing, that is from relief to risk to resilience. The direction has been changed from relief to risk to resilience. So for that we are going to Discuss in detail. Now look at the disaster management. In the early years, the paper was heavily response driven. UPSC tested you on basic risk assessment, general disaster preparedness, and administrative execution under NDMA guidelines, National Disaster Management Authority. The question demand centered entirely on administrative crisis management when after an event occurred. When this is the era 2013 to 2017, this is era number 1. Then after 2017, the focus shifted to international risk frameworks like Sendai framework. They were asked to compare the Sendai framework directly with the Hugo framework. You are asked to explain how hazard zonation mapping works as structural mitigation tool. The question has changed international risk frameworks from administrative crisis management to. Now look at the very recent papers from 2013, 2023 to 2024. They asked dam failures, urban flooding as an emerging climate induced disasters, deciphering a disaster resilience framework. So look at very carefully. The paper changed completely. Earlier the core question was what happened. Now the core question is why did the system structurally fail? Disaster management has evolved from reactive crisis management into a study of asset failure, institutional gaps, and a resilient recovery design. Please understand this very much care. The paper changed completely. Earlier, the core question was what? What happened? Now, the question is why did the system structurally fail? So, disaster management has evolved from reactive crisis management into a study of asset failure, institutional gaps, and resilient recovery design. So, comes to the disaster structural layout. What is the pipeline here? Disaster model, hazard, exposure, vulnerability, response, and resilience. Stop studying structure disasters as a generic soft essays on floods, cyclones, or earthquakes. If you are writing an answer on urban floods or dam failures for the 2026 paper, the evaluator does not want generic points about planting trees. They want you to map the specific hazard, calculate human and infrastructural exposure, diagnose structural or network vulnerability, like peak hydrograph attenuation, and outline real institutional resilience. So the generic points have gone. They want you to map the specific hazard, calculate human infrastructural exposure, diagnose structural or network vulnerability like peak hydrograph attenuation, and outline real institutional resilience. So in this way we are going to prepare for 2026 like structural vulnerability, structural disaster structural layout, that is hazard, exposure, vulnerability, response, and resilience. So we are coming to the third engine, that is science and technology. After observing these things from 2013 to 2025, from technology to capability, the shift has been changed. So the science and technology, this is where writing generic answers will cost you the most marks. Why? In the early years, the questions targeted basic applied consumer technology. UPSC asked you to explain digital signatures, 3D printing, mechanics. 3D printing mechanics are the everyday applications of FRP composite materials. The demand was so simple in earlier. Explain how the technology works. In the earlier years, the era number one, that is 2013 to 17 model. In the middle years, the bar was raised. They tested specialized scientific concepts like Bose-Einstein statistics, advanced nanotechnology applications, and frontier payloads like the James Webb Space Telescope. In the 2017 to 2020 around, this is the era number 2. But era number 3, that is 2020 to 25. Now look at the most recent cycles: artificial intelligence in clinical diagnosis, electric vehicle emission parameters, the India semiconductor mission, India's specific contribution to the ITER fusion project, and advanced carbon capture utilization and storage mechanics. So, do you see the shift? The technology is no longer being treated as textbook knowledge, it is being treated as an expression of national strategic capability. So, the shift is how the technology works to now, how technology in clinical diagnosis, in electric vehicle emission parameters, and advanced capture utilization storage mechanics. So there is no longer textbook knowledge. It is being treated as an expression of national strategic capability. From technology works to national strategic capability. So the technology capability constant strategic implication have been changed from technology to strategic implication. So UPSC is no longer just asking what is the technology. No, not. They are asking, can India build it? Can India deploy it? What are our structural supply chain constraints? And what are the macroeconomic implications? You must move past high school science explanations to the science and technology strategic sequence, that is technology, then capability, then constraint, then strategic implication. When you look at the Indian semiconductor mission for the 2026 paper, you don't write about basic electronics. You isolate the technical capabilities like clean room fabrication parameters and chemical vapor deposition metallurgy, map the capital intensive constraints, and evaluate India's pursuit of strategic autonomy in global hardware supply chains. So the strategic autonomy framework currently is the need of the hour as far as 2026 paper is concerned. The technology to strategic autonomy, the shift has been changed. So comes to the semiconductor case. For example, let we discuss that. You don't write about basic electronics in the 2026 paper if you appear the semiconductor case. Let's say example. You isolate the technical capabilities like clean room fabrication parameters and chemical vapor deposition metallurgy, map the capital intensive constraints, and evaluate India's pursuit of strategic autonomy in global hardware supply chains. The technology works to strategic autonomy. This is the change of the shift you have to understand as far as science and technology is concerned. Then comes to the engine number 4, that is internal security. From threats to networks. Then comes to internal security. In the initial years, The threat identification was purely physical and geographic. They asked about managing porous land borders, handling terrain challenges, and looking at the link between internal security and border infrastructure. Then after then after the 2017, then came to the focus on statutory updates and expanded legislative teeth, evaluating structural amendments to Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, that is UAPA, and analyzing the operational mandate of NIA, National Investigating Agency. The shift changed from physical geographical porous borders and infrastructure to statutory updates and expanded legislative teeth. They asked. Then now look at the modern era. They asked about the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, encrypted messaging architectures posing a threat grade. Then cross-border unmanned aerial vehicles, ferrying contraband, narco-terrorism linkages, left-wing extremism parameters, maritime security lane protection. The shift has been permanently or completely and visibly changed. I'm not saying permanently. The shift has been changed visibly. Like digital threats, cyber threats, narco-terrorism, UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, left-wing extremism parameters. One of the most important thing is that is maritime security lane protections. The shift has explicitly visible. Look at very carefully. Threat vectors are no longer isolated. Security has become an interconnected matrix of technology, finance, logs, and asymmetric networks. So stop preparing security as independent, isolated bucket of terrorism, cyber threats, or border policing. No, that is not correct way to prepare for 2026. Like stops up preparing security as independent, isolated buckets of terrorism, cyber threats, or border policing. Instead, you have to focus on map the network dynamics and the internal security grid matrix like this: actor, network, state, and governance. The challenge. What is the challenge? UPSC explicitly pinned its recent left-wing extremism question to the state's 2026 elimination timeline. As we stand right here in 2026, writing a generic essay on historical socio-economic alienation will not earn you marks. The evaluator wants an active assessment of the network, tracking modern funding resources, analyzing border surveillance technology, evaluating last mile connectivity infrastructure, and testing the precise operational capacity of the state security architecture. So work you have to work on these things, like active assessment of the network, tracking modern funding resources, analyzing border surveillance technology, evaluating last mile connectivity infrastructure, and testing the precise operational capacity of the state security architecture. But what should be the final METIS 2026 workflow? What should be the preparation standard? And what you have to prepare themes or topics or networks for 2026 as far as science and technology is concerned. In the science and technology, the syllabus is covered vast, like biotechnology, space technology, nanotechnology, compute information technology, etc., nanotechnology, robotics, etc. So we have to cover all these things, but with the with the updation of PYQs. So PYQs tell the shift to us. So after these analysis of environment, disaster management, and science and technology, and internal security, what we have to learn is the METIS 2026 workflow. It is called as that is called as the METIS 3-step 2026 execution framework for preparing for 2026 mains GS-3 second half. For that, till now we till now that we have analyzed the evidence across all 36 past year questions. After these analysis, let's talk about the action. What is the real question is here? How do you fundamentally change your daily study routine tomorrow morning to clear the 2026 paper? To secure high marks, you must abandon passive narrative style reading and implement a structured three-step workflow at your desk. What is the structured three-step workflow for 2026? That is the three-step workflow. That is step 1, execute syllabus reverse mapping. Execute syllabus reverse mapping. What is the execute syllabus reverse mapping? The outdated route simple, that is newspaper headline, then generic summary, then wall of text completed. But the METIS route, what is the METIS route? METIS route is current event, then syllabus sub theme, then isolate micro mechanisms, then prepare. First, change how you process current affairs. First, you change how you process current affairs. When you read a news article about an environmental crisis, a cyber attack, or an industrial breakthrough, stop just summarizing the headline. Stop just summarizing the headline. You must instantly reverse map it. You must instantly reverse map to its exact static sub theme in the syllabus. If you read about severe groundwater depletion and our severe groundwater depletion, an average answer states groundwater is a decreasing rapidly in India because of overuse by farmers. That will get you low marks. A high scoring METIS response targets the exact scientific mechanism, that is over extraction alters subsurface fluid mechanics, causing a severe drop in freshwater hydraulic head. You are no longer reading for general information. You are building precise data blocks. For that matter, I don't want to write a technical answer. Just I am explaining it. General studies is general studies rather than technical. For that matter, you have to use some technical words also with the demand of the question only. Please understand this carefully. So come to the next step. What is the step 1? Step 1 is execute syllabus reverse mapping. Simply, when you read the current affairs, after reading the current affairs, then you go to reverse. Reverse means in the syllabus what is the sub theme regarding this particular current event. Then you have to identify what is the micro theme here. What is the micro theme here? Then you have to understand and then you have to prepare like that only. That's it, very much simple. Then come to the step 2. Convert your notebook into single page core modules. The METIS core module template should be like this. Your operational requirement for 2026 marks, the micro mechanism, the evidence kit, and the statutory teeth. First of all, the micro mechanism. The exact technical, physical, or architectural process driving the topic. You have to write. Then evidence kit. Exactly two definitive statistics, one apex committee report, and one localized case study. Then statutory teeth. The precise legislative sections, legal amendments, or international treaty targets. These are the single page core modules. Everything under comes under these three subheadings like micro mechanism, then evidence kit, then statutory teeth. This is single page core module. Then second, stop creating massive multi-page narrative files on current issues. For every single sub-theme, for every single sub-theme in the GS-3 syllabus, limit your notes into a single page module structured exactly like this template. When you restrict your content this tight, when you restrict your content to this tight modular format, you ensure that every single sentence you memorize is an applied high scoring keyword ready for the exam hall. This is the step 2. And what is the step 3? Master the 15-second spatial sketch. What is the 15-second spatial sketch? A minimal hand drawn layout animation displays on screen. Like, simply I am telling you, train your mind to anchor your points spatially, because the modern paper targets precise local hazards. You can no longer rely purely on dense blocks of text. If a question asks you, if a question asks you about industrial mining hazards, do not just list the impacts as text. Instantly drop a quick, simple sketch mapping, a definitive location template like the Bellary iron ore mining belt or the Niveli coal pit heads. If you are addressing the seawater intrusion, draw a minimal three-line cross section illustrating the pressure gradient inversion. These visual anchors instantly prove your ground level administrative awareness to the evaluator. So in this way, you will get a good marks. So for this we understand so far isolated micro mechanism, site specific statutory parameters, map localized case templates. The lesson from analyzing these past year's questions absolutely clear. GS Paper 3 is no longer rewarding broad answers. It rewards applied highly technical understanding. At METIS IAS Academy, we train our students to use question family identification to decode these precise micro technical themes long before they ever step into the exam hall. To help you implement this transition immediately, We have compiled a complete scannable GS3 micro keywords directory, mapping every major subthemes directly to its high scoring technical vocabulary. You can download it right now via the link description below. Refine your vocabulary, change your note making, isolate mechanisms instead of memorizing headlines. Because the paper changed and your preparation must change with it. Hit that subscription button for zero clutter strategy deep dives. Change your approach to note making and let's dominate the 2026 mains. I'm Niranjan. I will see you at our next structural autopsy. We completed till now GS2 and GS3 structural autopsies.